Welcome to the Titan I/O Plus Module Advanced video. Click the button to start. Introduction. Topics covered include hardware, part numbers, component integration, firmware and software, program installation, adding a controller, serial numbers and ID codes, usage and configuration, configurations, network connection, network design limitations, connection details, LED light status, CE markings, summary, and a short quiz. Hardware. Part numbers. The I/O Plus component part numbers are as follows: I/O Plus backplane board, I/O Plus processor board, I/O Plus I/O network board, I/O Plus controller motherboard, I/O Plus controller network board, I/O Plus input boards, I/O Plus power supply, I/O Plus RS-485 board. Some parts are required while others are optional depending on your configuration. Please note the part numbers can change at any time and have version numbers added to reflect that. Component integration. The backplane is the base used to physically connect all the other available I/O Plus components that gather sensor information and provide the physical outputs for equipment control. The backplane normally consists of an I/O Plus module processor board connecting to the I/O Plus module backplane using a plug-in connector. Simple plug-and-run connections allow you to add or remove various components to make up your I/O Plus assembly. The I/O Plus processor board is used to run the I/O Plus module and connects to an I/O Plus module backplane using two plug-in connectors. The I/O Plus processor, when connected to the I/O Plus backplane, handles both the input and output processes for the I/O Plus module. The Titan I/O Plus I/O network board is used to facilitate all I/O network communication. It's required anytime the I/O Plus module needs to communicate to other I/O devices. An I/O network is required anytime a processor is used with the I/O Plus. The I/O network provides communication over a single 18-gauge twisted pair cable. It can also be expanded through the addition of optional repeaters to create multiple network segments. Controller motherboard. The data processing and logic control units of the Argus system. They're optional and not part of a basic setup, but are required when using the I/O Plus module as a controller network. The Titan controller is a specially designed processor unit for data acquisition and real-time control. It includes an array of programs for sustaining complex life support environments, including the management of air, water, soil, and aquatic conditions. A full range of custom equipment control programs is supplied to operate the specialized systems typically used in protected environments. In addition, highly customized equipment control applications can be developed at runtime using a suite of generic building block program modules. Controller network board facilitates all controller network connections. It's optional and not part of a basic setup, but is required when using the I/O Plus module as a controller network. The controller network allows connections between any I/O Plus and Titan controllers, up to 250 controllers depending on your configuration. It uses a proprietary 1 megabit per second communication protocol and dedicated 2-wire twisted pair cabling, also called Aquaseal cabling, for connecting controllers on the same domain. The controller network board also features built-in lightning protection, providing additional protection from substantial lightning surges. Connectors are now black when they used to be green, so they differentiate on the controller network board. Titan I/O Plus input boards are used to manage the analog inputs on the I/O Plus module. Up to 3 analog input cards can be added, each providing 7 software configurable channels for a total of 21 inputs. These are configurable for direct connection of DC resistance, DC voltage, or AC impedance devices. The inputs are used for acquiring signals from sensors and other input devices. Most industrial sensors can be connected directly, although a few special types may require external signal conditioning. Power supply. The Titan I/O Plus network power supply provides constant power to the Titan system. It's equipped with intelligent input-output signal fault detection, and each power supply monitors for under/over current conditions to protect the other devices on the network. Managed power design enables superimposition of the communication signals using a 2-wire connection to each node on the network. Each I/O Plus power supply powers one I/O Plus module. The RS-485 board is used for independent serial communications networks. The RS-485 board connects to specific outputs with extra connectors to accommodate it. These 3 outputs can only use Modbus if a controller is also used. This board supports the connection of Argus Classic device networks to the Argus Titan I/O Plus, enabling the continued use of existing I/O hardware. It also supports the connection of other RS-485 based networks such as Modbus RTU and EBM Bus to the Titan system. It's important to note that this output card can only be used on IO Plus modules. Firmware and software. First, ensure your firmware is updated. Most systems have up-to-date firmware, unless it's a rare situation where you're expanding Titan with new IO Plus modules, and have old versions of this firmware not compatible with the IO Plus module. Customers need to contact Argus support if you have firmware that could be more than a year out of date. Program installation. Add the IO Plus to the software and configure settings. From the home screen, click the Screen Designer tab. Right-click anywhere on the screen and select Add Group or Locked Group. Select the hardware entry and find the IO Plus module. Click Next, select the controller, click Next, name the new IO Plus group, and change other settings like Display as Window or Menu Entry as required. Click Finish. The group is copied, and when done, click OK. Enter any inputs, both analog and pulse, and outputs. Click an output and select an output type. Click Finish. Click an input and select an input type. Click Finish. Adding a controller. Add a controller if a controller board is attached to the IO Plus module. It's rare to have to add a controller and is usually done by Argus support. If this is a new configuration and a controller needs to be added, here are the steps. From the home screen, click the Screen Designer tab. Right-click anywhere on the screen and select Add Group or Locked Group. Select the hardware entry and find the basic controller. Click Next, select a controller, click Next. Name the new controller group and change other settings like Display as Window or Menu Entry as required. Click Finish. The group is copied, and when done, click OK. Serial numbers and ID codes. There are several serial numbers and a security code included on the IO Plus module. The controller ID code, the backplane serial number, processor security code, processor serial number, controller serial number. Setting up the security code is normally done by Argus support staff. The other codes are normally used for tracking purposes and service events. First, add the processor security code, factory screen, controller. Navigate to your IO Plus module entry. Enter the board ID code. If the code is not entered, then the board cannot connect. And now add the controller security code from the backplane serial number on the IO Plus module. Factory screen, controller, program management. Add the backplane security code. If the code is not entered, then the controller cannot connect. Usage and configuration. Configurations. The minimum configuration is a combination of IO Plus backplane, IO Plus processor board, IO Plus IO network board. Other components can be added: an IO Plus controller, IO Plus system network board, IO Plus input boards, and various output cards. Network connection. This diagram details the connections between IO Plus modules, IO modules, controllers, on IO or separate, and the sensors or controlled equipment. Here you can see the system network diagram. It includes the IO Plus module, IO device network, controller system network, any control equipment, and the sensors. It gives you a good overview of what the IO Plus module can control. Network design limitations. Each IO Plus module has its own power supply as displayed. It can only be used to power that module and cannot power anything else on the network. A system network repeater, or SNRE, also draws a small amount of power which must come from a point on the network. A system network power supply needs to be added to the first Titan controller, especially with IO Plus modules, as power cannot be drawn from the IO Plus power supply. This power supplies the system network repeater. System network segment terminators are supplied for the end of each wiring segment. Each Aquaseal wire segment needs to be terminated using a 100 ohm terminator. Please note, a system network power supply is only required as a power source if repeaters are used on the network. There's a minimum distance of 50 feet between each controller, with 100 feet preferred when using more than 5 controllers. Maximum distance between controllers on one segment with up to 3 nodes is 1,000 feet. The rule to remember is 3 nodes are allowed per segment without a repeater. Length 1 and length 2 are each longer than 50 feet, and in total less than 1,000 feet together. length 3 equals up to 1,000 feet by itself. For example, length 1 is 200 feet and length 2 is 600 feet, equaling 800 feet total. Length 3 totals 800 feet. A network repeater should be used to expand the cable or improve communication when the node number in one segment is more than 3, the wiring needs to be split, or the total cable length is more than 1,000 feet. If too many controllers are on one segment, a system network repeater, mentioned earlier, should be used. The same lengths apply when there are more than 3 nodes. Please note that the repeater is counted as one of the nodes on the segment. Connection details. An access point allows for up to 16 I/O Plus modules to be connected to it. An access point can only have up to 5 I/O modules connected without a repeater because of the power loss on the cable. The I/O Plus module does not take power from the I/O network, so does not have this limitation. A Titan controller segment without repeaters has a maximum distance of 1,000 feet. Typically, up to 3 or 4 repeaters can be used on a Titan controller segment to extend networks, branching, or improve signal quality. Using switches and wireless connections between controllers and the access point. For the Ethernet backbone, simply plug in the Windows PC to the switch and the controllers to the same switch. Set up the network list in the access point as per the online help and you're done. Wireless is only recommended for point-to-point links or extensions of the Windows PC switched Ethernet link to controller PC links. Ethernet switches can be used on domain bridge links to extend the network length, but you can't add more controllers to these switches. The domain bridge is point-to-point and only provides a link between 2 controllers. I/O network and system network repeaters are typically added at the midway point of a network segment, but can change depending on the network. It can be placed anywhere to reduce the number of nodes in a short distance. LED light status. Processor LEDs. I/O net active. Blinking green LED on indicates the controller is receiving messages from the I/O network addressed to other modules and is able to communicate. I/O message received. Messages are being received correctly for this module. Green blinks with every message received. I/O message fault. Distorted message received with a steady green light. Troubleshoot the I/O network. There could be an incorrect cable length or type or an incorrect or failed termination. Heartbeat. The heartbeat LED blinks green for normal operation. 24 VDC status. Off LED indicates the 24-volt power fuse and 24-volt are okay. A green LED blinking indicates the fuse is blown or the power supply voltage is too high or too low. Controller LEDs. Rec Sysnet. Green LED on indicates the controller is receiving messages from the system network. Heartbeat. The heartbeat LED blinks green for normal operation. Rec Net Talk. Green LED on indicates the controller is receiving token pass messages, so they're in the network list and can transmit responses. ETHLink. Blinking green indicates the Ethernet cable is connected and working correctly. ETH speed indicates Ethernet speed and is always on. SD card. When the LED is red, the SD card is correctly inserted and working properly. CE marking. What is CE? It's a mandatory conformity marking for products sold in the EU. The marking is our declaration that we meet requirements. This declaration of conformity is included when we ship to Europe. Argus is also WEEE, Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment Directive compliant. Under WEEE, customers can recycle their old equipment when buying new equipment. For details, check the Argus website. Summary. Topics covered include hardware, part numbers, component integration, firmware and software, program installation, adding a controller, serial numbers and ID codes, usage and configuration, configurations, network connection, network design limitations, connection details, LED light status, CE markings, summary, and a short quiz. Next is a short quiz on the concepts you've learned today. Thanks for watching the video. For more information, see the I/O Plus Operator's Guide or contact Argus support. Click any of the following links for more information.